Well, Ben, the stage is yours. They're all very curious. Big round of applause, guys, please.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. I know what you're thinking. Now we get to the good stuff. This is the state of cannabis. I've been asked to give you an update on what is cannabis. And maybe some of you are asking yourselves just that question, what is cannabis? It is the new scientific professional label for marijuana, or weed, or grass, or ganja, or whatever you want to call it. My name is Ben Larson. That's hard to remember, so I won't be offended if you come up to me afterwards and just call me the cannabis guy. It's okay. All right. But I'm not a weed guy, okay? There's a big difference. Like many of you, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a dreamer, I'm a capitalist, and that's how I got my start, working with startups. My passion is for helping people create value in the world, to uncover truths, and to realize opportunity. And as an entrepreneur, when you're trying to solve big problems and you're trying to apply where you are uniquely qualified to solve those problems, it was the cannabis industry where I realized there was the biggest opportunity. And we launched a cannabis accelerator in Oakland, California, that was trying to bridge the gap between the sophistication of an early market with the expectations of the venture capitalists that were trying to come in. You know, the original reason that accelerators and incubators were created, to kind of help establish the ecosystem and connect the dots. So let's just think about that for a little bit. A cannabis startup accelerator. This is alluding to kind of the state at which we're in. I mean, a lot of people just think of cannabis as getting high, as getting stoned, getting the munchies, falling asleep, being lazy. But there's a whole industry that's burgeoning. And there's enough demand to create a startup accelerator, not just one, but many. And the industry is growing very quickly. And we've learned a lot. And we're attracting lots of capital into the space. You know, all the startups that get up on stages always like to quote billion-dollar industries. Well, there are billions on top of billions being made in the cannabis industry already, both legal and illegal. But we're talking about a $100 billion industry, and it's growing worldwide. And so where we started with the Startup Accelerator, we're now doing venture capital, and it's starting to look very much like Silicon Valley. And that was our goal. There's an emerging market. It deserves to be legal, which I'll get into in just a little bit. And so it should be as digestible as any other mainstream market. And so I've been asked to come on this stage and catch you all up to speed. I got into the industry about 3 years ago, knowing very little about cannabis. And so I've done the hard work. I've put my reputation on the line and took a bet on an industry. And it turns out it was a good bet. And so I'm going to give you all that knowledge today so that you could come join me in this beautiful industry that we now only refer to as the cannabis industry. But first, before I educate you, and because I don't have one of those handy little like Men in Black devices to erase your memory, I have to kind of rewrite the misinformation that you've been fed your entire lives. Marijuana, weed, has been a device, they've been divisive terms that have been applied to a plant that no one ever really knew a lot about. It wasn't that it was super dangerous. It wasn't that it was truly a gateway drug. It was that it was a political tool to disenfranchise various community segments and markets. Massive amounts of money went into propaganda, especially in the US, to tell you that this is your brain on drugs. To further push the prohibitionist propaganda and get you to stay away from it, not question. It's evil, it's dangerous, you'll lose everything. Not based on science or truth or knowledge, but just based on propaganda that the government wanted to push. And this is worldwide. Okay? It is a Schedule I drug for the UN and for the federal government of the United States. A Schedule I drug, I mean, that is worse than cocaine and methamphetamines. But anyone that consumes, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, don't worry. Although, I was hanging out with some of you last night. But anyone that consumes knows that's impossible. And it is impossible. And there's tons of even federally funded studies that have said so. So why do we keep pushing this propaganda? Well, it's time that we stop. Because now we have the ability to push the knowledge and the truth. We're at this beautiful point in time where social media empowers us all to kind of continue to provide the knowledge to the community that is truth. And of course, there's fake news out there, but that will only last so long. We are the cure to this ignorance. And so that's what we need to be, and that's why I'm on the stage talking to the DigitalK audience about cannabis. There's also technology opportunities in the space, but let's talk about the plant, all right? There's a plant that has been stigmatized, illegalized, for what? Compared to cocaine, which is a very simple chemical structure, very easy to identify, why would we classify cannabis in the same context as even that? Because in cannabis, you have over 200 compounds that all have unique characteristics that interact with the body in a very specific way. And by ostracizing an entire plant, we have stopped research on all 200 compounds. Some of these compounds actually exist in other plants. So what are we saying about that? Are those illegal? The beauty of this all of this is that, we're figuring out that it's just so much more than pot. And some of you already know about THC and the amazing medical benefits of CBD. But THCV, THCN, CBG, CBN, and 200 other compounds, like I mentioned, they all have the amazing ability to interact with our bodies and create medicines that we never even knew could exist from an organic, naturally occurring plant. And there's different methods of consumption that are being revealed every day. We're all familiar with bud or flower, whatever you want to call it. Now we have oils and concentrates, edibles, isolates, aerosol, topicals. There's many different applications. And we're just scratching the surface. So many people are still just calling it weed and marijuana. But we're talking about medicine, nutraceuticals, pet care, health and beauty, athletics. The opportunities are boundless. Every day I get approached by new doctors that want to enter the space. Neuroscientists, chemists, microbiologists. People are building robust teams to really dig into the science and differentiate their products. It's really quite amazing what we're already learning. As we explore this amazing tree of compounds, we're finding out that, this segment over here doesn't even actually have any psychoactive effects. All those things that the government wants you to be scared of. CBD is probably the reason I'm standing here on this stage, right? It has the ability to relieve anxiety, to relieve inflammation. It's an anti-cancer and non-psychoactive. And why we haven't thrown tons and tons of money to research this in the past is beyond me. But in this talk, I'm not going to get angry. I promise I won't get angry. Until I start talking about opioids and how they're proliferated and pushed. Anyone from Bayer here? No, just kidding. I'm not. Not here to make any enemies. But in states where cannabis has been legalized, opioid abuse and consumption has decreased. It's not a gateway drug. It's actually an exit drug. It is helping people get off of opioid drugs. And it's actually providing a replacement that is non-psychoactive, non-addictive. And so you can actually wean yourself off of the medicine. And we pretend to care so much about people and service members. But these are the people that the medicine can help the most. And so are we just paying lip service? Is this just propaganda? I mean, cannabis, it makes an incredible PTSD medicine. It helps people reassimilate back into society and sleep. There are many other ailments. I could go on for much longer that they're going to give me on here. So I'll just move on. The prohibitionists are always saying, what about the kids? Yeah, what about the kids? What about the kids where cannabis is the only solution to keep them alive? What about the kids in the legal states that haven't been negatively impacted through legalization? What about the kids that are being torn away from their families because of these old prohibitionist laws? They're saying, oh, service member father or mother who's using it to treat their PTSD, you're not fit to be a parent, so we're going to take your kids away. What about my son, who, God forbid, comes down with an ailment that could be treated by cannabis, but every doctor he attends to says no, because he's closed-minded due to a stigma that has been falsely applied to this industry? We're starting to see that tipping point because very normalizing groups of people are starting to get behind this movement. Athletes are a great example. Football, basketball, baseball, you name it. People are using it as part of their training regimens, recovery, to protect the brain. Coaches, players, former all-stars are speaking out publicly. This is huge for us. It also shows that there's a really big market out there. As an investor, I get very excited about creating products that could be industry leaders that didn't previously exist, but the science has been there. Pet care. Our furry friends deserve to have the medicine that is good for them, that is healthy, that can relieve their anxiety, help them eat when they are sick. We're learning so much about the body. We have a complex endocannabinoid system that has receptors all throughout the body. That's why it is so complex and so hard to understand and has historically been very difficult for people to wrap their minds around. Once we know more about the system, we can have very targeted effects of these very individualized cannabinoids, personalized medicine. I mean, cannabis is the wonder drug for personalized medicine. And so where are we at? Just want to give you a quick overview of the legalization effort. In the US, there we go. All right, in the US, we have 9 adult use recreational states. That means you can go in with an ID, purchase cannabis, and smoke it. Now, it's not that easy. The legislation is very complex. It's different for every state. But it is a good trend. 30 medical states out of 50 in the US. Tipping point. There's no putting this cat back in the bag. And 64% with the most recent Gallup poll of US citizens approve of legalization of cannabis. It's in the 90s when you're talking about medical cannabis. And when you're talking about the younger generations, and I'll point to myself because it makes me feel good, it's even higher. And it's spreading across the world. This map doesn't mean anything to you guys because there's no key, but it is changing, it is proliferating just like throughout the US. And the financial opportunity is huge. Here's the graphs that you typically see in DEX. You see that hockey stick curve? You see a higher growth rate than e-commerce and cable television, the 2 largest markets known in the US. And there's an uncaptured market. This is unprecedented. This is every MBA's dream. You're always trying to predict what the market's going to be. We kind of know what the market is and how little of it we've achieved. And we also know it's going to grow because of all those other things that I told you earlier. And the best thing now is that when it's historically been the activists pushing Capitol Hill to change the laws, now when something threatens the industry, it is politicians from both sides of the aisle coming together and fighting to push cannabis forward. It's no longer the advocates that need to respond first. It's the governors, the congressmen, the assembly people. It's really a beautiful thing to see. Okay. Well, I guess I'll wrap it up there. No, the future of the cannabis industry is very bright. It's boundless. There are opportunities in every industry out there. You can really see cannabis taking a leading role in multi-billion-dollar industries. We see it more as a horizontal than a vertical. And where in 1995, a lot of people were asking themselves, what is the usefulness of the internet? Is this going to be a thing? How big is the internet market going to be? Well, cannabis is the next internet. We can already see that it's going to be huge. We can see that it's going to interact in very important ways in many different industries, to the point where we won't even talk about the cannabis industry anymore. I'll hopefully work myself out of a job of being focused on the cannabis industry because it will be everywhere. And so my call to action for you guys is educate. Talk about it in this fashion. Talk about the opportunity. If you have questions, ask. I'll be around for the rest of the conference. I am the cannabis guy. And this is the state of cannabis. Thank you very much.